Madam President, I rise today to honor the memory of LaVell Edwards, a giant of the gridiron who guided Brigham Young University football program through decades of unprecedented success. Surrounded by his family, Coach Edwards passed away peacefully on the morning of December 29, 2016. Born to Philo and Addie Edwards in 1930 in Orem, Utah, LaVell excelled in football and basketball at Lincoln High School. Following graduation, he decided to attend Utah State University to play football. LaVell figured that if he played for BYU, the hometown school, he would have lived at home and been required to milk the family cows. So he went north to Logan, and at Utah State, he met the love of his life, Patty Covey. A few months after the two went on a blind date, they were married in Beaver Dam, Utah. Following graduation, LaVell served in the Army for 2 years. After receiving an honorable discharge from the military, he became head football coach at Granite High School in Salt Lake City. After 8 seasons as a head coach, LaVell was hired by BYU by Hal Mitchell in 1962. LaVell humorously remarked that he was hired only because Coach Mitchell wanted to run the single-wing offense, and Coach Edwards was the only Mormon running that offense at the time. After 10 seasons as an assistant coach at BYU, he was promoted to head coach in 1972. Prior to his promotion, BYU had never achieved much success in football. In LaVell's words, it was a matter of when, not if, he'd be fired. So he decided to do something the few other coaches were doing at the time: make the forward pass the focal point of the offense. LaVell's bold move revolutionized the game of football. His quarterbacks ended up throwing for over 100,000 yards, and 4 of them won the Davy O'Brien Award, given annually to college football's best quarterback. One of his quarterbacks even won the Heisman Trophy, which is awarded each year to college football's best player. LaVell's high-powered offense boosted the team to national prominence and culminated in BYU's 1984 national championship victory. Following this historic season, Coach Edwards was named the AFCA National Coach of the Year. And with LaVell at the helm, BYU consistently finished in the top 25. He would eventually lead the Cougars to 19 conference championships and 257 victories, making him the 7th winningest coach in college football history. He coached 31 All-Americans, 6 College Football Hall of Famers, and 2 Outland Trophy winners. Coach Edwards himself was ultimately inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 2004. Despite his tremendous success on the field, LaVell always remembered and always remained humble. He also never lost his sense of humor. And although college football fans typically remember Coach Edwards for his trademark sideline scowl, he was renowned for his wit. He quipped on this fact, saying, quote, "Someone once said, 'I'm a happy guy. I just forgot to tell my face,'" unquote. With his disarming humor and clever one-liners, LaVell could lighten the mood and make almost anyone laugh. Coach Edwards also had a remarkable ability to delegate. Though he knew football, forwards and backwards, he surrounded himself with capable coaches, and he let them do their jobs. His assistants were some of the best ever in college football, partially because he let them have a free rein. This quality allowed him to focus on the personal element of football. He valued all of his players, and by all accounts, his door was always open to them. Indeed, many of his players have spoken about having frequent meetings with him that helped change their lives for the better. At his funeral, hundreds of former football players showed up, Hall of Famers, top-notch rated people in almost every case. I was there for the funeral on Saturday. Coach Edwards simply cared about people And I was fortunate to witness this up close. In the 100th Congress, I had the pleasure of working with him when he was president of the American Football Coaches Association. Together, we helped to pass legislation that allowed the AFCA to establish multi-employer pensions for college football coaches. Given the uncertain nature of the coaching profession, this legislation was an important achievement for coaches and their families across the country. Although football was important to LaVell, his faith was first and foremost. While he was coaching at BYU, LaVell served as a lay bishop in a Mormon student congregation. He thoroughly enjoyed the interactions he had with these students. Throughout his life, he served his church in many other positions of responsibility. Following his retirement from coaching in 2000, LaVell and Patty served a public affairs mission in New York City for the Mormon Church. He served honorably in that capacity and even put his experience as a football coach to good use. I might add that he invited me to come up and go to dinner with a number of dignitaries in that area so that he could chat with them and tell them a little bit about his faith and his beliefs. And it was a privilege to do so. He and Patty were terrific missionaries and good people. While a missionary, LaVell aided in the establishment of Harlem's first high school football program in decades. Coach Edwards and Patty also met with many different political and religious leaders. And as he put it, they looked to, quote, build bridges, unquote, between these leaders and his church. Madam President, LaVell Edwards was a champion on and off the field. Not only was he one of the most successful coaches in college football history, he was also one of the greatest men that I ever knew. I will be forever grateful for my own friendship with LaVell, and I pray that we will always remember the humility and humor that were the hallmarks of his life. It was one of the privileges of my life to have a personal relationship with him and Patty. They were two of the finest people, and are two of the finest people I've ever met. I have to say that LaVell would drop anything to support his religious beliefs, and he was a tremendous influence on literally hundreds, if not thousands, of football players and others who watched what he said, watched what he did, and loved how well he did those things. I personally was befriended by him on a number of occasions, and it meant a lot to me. It means a lot to me to this day. Not because he was so important and that he was one of the greatest coaches who ever lived, he's in the Hall of Fame, but because he was a down-to-earth person who loved to play golf, loved all sports, and loved being with people. And when he supported you, it was really support. All I can say is he's one of the greatest men I've ever met in my life. He had a great influence on so many people, still does. His wife is every bit as great as he has been. Both are tremendous human beings who have made this world a better place to live. And from a football standpoint, I think most coaches who knew him would say he was unexcelled. And I agree that's true. But that was minor compared to the type of life he lived, the type of things that he did, the type of honors that he shared, the type of kindness that he showed, the kind of ability to talk to people and help them through their problems that he had. And of course, the overall just genuine goodness of a fellow whose life was well spent, who'd touched so many lives, literally hundreds of thousands of lives over the years, and who had this tremendous sense of humor that just made being around him a real pleasure. I'm grateful I knew LaVell Edwards well. I'm grateful for the life he lived. I'm grateful for the example he set. I'm grateful for the joy he brought to so many people. And I just wish his dear wife, Patty, well. And I just hope that these words will be a little bit of consolation for her. Madam President, I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.